Now, you might say that I was winning on paper. I had a good career, I had a great family, and I was checking boxes that most people would just frankly love to check. But I was exhausted, I was irritable, I was literally burned out, and I was totally frustrated. And the worst part about all of it is that I just couldn't connect the dots and figure out why. I wasn't doing anything obviously wrong. I just thought that I was chugging along. But that's the thing about habits that destroy you at this stage in life. They don't look like destruction. They actually can look like discipline. They can look like you're being a good guy. They can look like responsibility. But they are slowly draining the life from you. And we have totally normalized every single one of these things. Welcome back. Today, I am going to walk you through 7 habits that I had to quit in my 50s to really just kind of stop the bleeding. Now, it's not because they were bad habits in the obvious sense, but because they had kind of quietly become the wrong habits for the man that I was trying to become. And I'm going to start with habit number 1, and that's getting meaning from motion. During this season, if you asked me how I was doing, I would have told you busy. I thought that being busy doing stuff meant significance. And it showed the world that I wasn't lazy and that I brought some value into the world. I had a totally full calendar. I was always moving. I was always producing. And because I was doing all of that, I felt productive. And so therefore, I felt valuable. But all that busyness just kept me too occupied to sit with the hard questions about what I really wanted and who I really wanted to be. Am I actually moving towards something, or am I just moving? In other words, is this the life I chose, or is it the life that happened to me? Busyness is the most socially acceptable form of avoidance that there is. Nobody questions the busy person. Nobody asks them to slow down. Nobody asks them to take inventory. And don't get me wrong, I am pretty busy these days, but I'm not spinning my wheels, burning myself out thinking that activity is going to bring me fulfillment. I had to quit the habit of finding meaning from motion so that I could reflect on what's truly important, decide what I really wanted to do, and begin taking steps in the right direction. Okay, habit number 2 is measuring myself against the wrong scoreboard. For most of my adult life, I was keeping score. I was comparing my career to this guy, my house to that guy, and I just always felt behind somehow. When my friends were driving new cars and sending their kids to private school, I was wondering really if I'd ever catch up, and I was just always reminding myself of my accomplishments to make myself feel better. So I was always either inflated, like my ego, or I was deflated. I was just never grounded, and I was never content. But that's what comparison actually does to us. Comparison doesn't motivate you, it disorients you. Because when you're in your 50s, you've got enough wins to feel superior and enough losses to feel behind all at the same time. And that tension will quietly eat you alive. In the book of Galatians, chapter 1, verse 10, Paul the Apostle says, "Obviously, I'm not trying to win the approval of people, but of God. If pleasing people were my goal, I would not be Christ's servant." I had to quit the scoreboard that was never mine to begin with and build one that actually reflected where God was taking me, not where culture told me that I should be. Side note, don't should on yourself. The number 3 habit that I had to quit in my 50s is saying yes to please people. And this is actually one that I wish that I would have quit 30 years ago. Saying yes to that project when I was already stretched thin. Saying yes to lending money when I really probably shouldn't or couldn't afford to. Saying yes to that outing or that social activity when I really didn't want to do it. And sometimes I even ignored my gut that was telling me not to do something because I didn't want the other person to get mad. How pathetic is that? I deliberately allowed myself to be emotionally manipulated just to avoid conflict. Now, on the surface, it made me seem like a nice guy, but being nice to everyone else meant really just no margin in my life and no time or energy left for my family. No margin for my marriage, no presents for my kids, no energy left for the things that God actually put in my hands to steward. The hard truth is, every yes is a no to something else. And for years, I was saying no to the most important things in my life, all while saying yes to keep people from getting mad at me. If you have people in your life who are trying to get you to say yes because they feel entitled or they resent you for guarding your time and your energy, then just shake them loose. Saying yes to things to please other people, it just leads to frustration and regret. I had to quit the habit of letting other people's urgency set my agenda. Hey, if you're 3 habits in and you already feel challenged, then go ahead and hit that like button for me. It means a lot, and it means I'm doing my job. All right, 4 more to go. Habit number 4 is confusing content consumption for growth. I was listening to podcasts, I was reading books, I was watching as many videos as I could. And that's super cool and all, and I endorse that. But I was consuming personal development content like it was actually personal development. In other words, I felt like I was growing, but I was just acquiring information. I wasn't building anything. I wasn't creating anything. I wasn't applying what I learned. And even worse, I wasn't practicing what I'd learned in community with other people. The true measurement of growth is not the knowledge that we accumulate, but the way that we love and serve others. Are we growing in love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control? If we're growing in those things, that's what matters. So I was just a very well-informed man who wasn't doing much with that information. There is a version of self-improvement that really is just like sophisticated procrastination. You keep learning so that you never have to start. You keep preparing so that you never have to actually ship the product, which is your actual growth. James 1:22 tells us to actually do what Scripture says. And I think that's actually good advice for content that teaches us how to move in a positive direction. So I had to quit confusing content consumption for growth and start actually doing what I was learning. Habit number 5 was the habit of not valuing rest. Like habit number 1, I wore my constant busyness like it was some sort of badge. And I didn't get much sleep at night. I was up pretty much before everyone else, and I was the last one to stop working during the day. And I felt disciplined. I felt tough and serious about my goals. Growing up, the highest compliment that a guy could receive was, he's a really hard worker. And that just seeped into me to where I felt guilty if I wasn't burning the candle at both ends. But I was chronically depleted, and I was making decisions from that place of depletion, really every single day. Bad decisions, short fuse, zero creativity during that season, no emotional bandwidth for the people around me. In fact, one day I was on the phone with my wife and I just found myself yelling at her over something really small. And I realized at that point that something was definitely wrong. In fact, it was then that I knew that it was actually time to go see a counselor. I found a great therapist, and he told me to start valuing rest, or I was heading towards really something catastrophic. And here's what nobody really tells the guy who really grinds. Fatigue doesn't just affect your body, it affects everything. When you're running on empty, you can't hear clearly, you can't lead clearly, and you definitely can't think clearly. Even God rested on the 7th day, and he's omnipotent. We really don't have an excuse. I had to quit glorifying productivity and just start treating rest as part of the work. Now, the 6th habit that I had to quit was treating time like it was some sort of endless commodity. And that may actually sound counter to my last habit, but my perception of time radically changed when I turned 50. My kids were leaving the house, and I realized that all the some days that I thought that I was going to have with them were now over. I regretted all the times that I chose work instead of play with my 3 sons. I realized that all the times that I said yes to others when I should have said no were actually hours and days just away from the things that I truly value. And on top of that, I am never getting those hours and days back. There's no amount of optimization and productivity hacking that will ever bring back the time that I should have spent with the people that I love most. The book of Psalms, chapter 90, verse 12 says, "Teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom." If we don't make someday today, then it is likely that it will never come. We have to grasp how quickly it all goes by. Treat each moment as precious. Be present when you're with your family. Cherish the time that you have. Refuse to waste it on things that just won't matter when all the time is gone. And that leads me to my last habit, and that's not being intentional about what matters. And this is kind of the one that just ties them all together. I was reacting to life instead of leading it. I was responding to just whatever came at me, managing the urgent, and just kind of surviving the moment. But it made me feel responsible. It made me feel reliable. It made me feel like a good guy, just doing my part. But I was unintentionally drifting instead of intentionally steering the ship. I had no written goals, no defined purpose, no clarity on what the next chapter of my life was actually supposed to look like. And here's what happens when a high-achieving man just has like no direction. He achieves things, just not the right things. He climbs the ladder, but just not against the right wall. Habakkuk 2:2 says, "Write the vision and make it plain." I think that's really interesting in that story. Not think about the vision, not pray about the vision and then just leave it there, and definitely not make a wish, which is what a lot of us do. Write it, make it plain. It wasn't until I started writing my goals and intentionally planning that I was able to actually finish my first book. And it wasn't until I became just much more intentional that I created a business. I got trained as a life and a leadership coach, and I started to gain some traction. I had to quit drifting and start deciding on paper with intention what the next decade of my life was going to stand for. But you tell me, what is your life going to stand for? Have you written it down? Let me know down in the comments. All right, I'm going to give you my last word, but I wanted to let you know that every month I send out a newsletter with practical insights on really just exactly this kind of stuff, like getting unstuck, moving forward, building a life with intention. And the link is down below. If you want to sign up for that, it's free. Okay, here's what I want you to take away from this. None of these habits made me a bad person. And if you're doing them, it doesn't make you a bad person. They made me busy though. They made me tired. They made me a distracted person who really was capable of so much more and just couldn't figure out why he wasn't getting there. Quitting them didn't make my life smaller. It actually made it bigger. And if you're sitting there right now thinking, I recognize myself in more than one of these habits, then I'm actually going to say that's good. That recognition is definitely not condemnation. That's actually like the beginning of the next version of you. And if you're needing some help overcoming negativity, then check out this video here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you over in the next video.